today, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually observing and we are making sure that we're going to talk about men's health. We're going to focus on boys' health as well, because this habit, or we really need to instill these habits of people having this awareness that, hey, you know what, I need to look after my health. And for that, I'm very lucky that I've actually been joined by some wonderful guests over here. First up, she's a very dedicated lady. She makes sure that whatever, her itinerary is for the day, that she kind of looks at it at 6 a.m. in the morning, then she texts other people who actually happen to be the stakeholders for the day at 7 a.m. in the morning and remind them, hey, you know what, this is what we are doing and that we are on top of everything. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm very lucky that from Maroof International Hospital, I've been joined by the head of corporate business, and she happens to be Miss Rubina Afzal. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, thank you very much for having me on the show, and I'm feeling great, and the energy that you transforms into your guest is amazing.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's wonderful to have you over here. And because we're talking about men's health, ladies and gentlemen, the conversation is going to be incomplete without having a doctor. So we are very lucky that we've actually been joined by the HOD, the head of Department of Cardiology, and that too from Maroof International Hospital, and he happens to be Dr. Omar Idris. Mufti, hello sir, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Well, I'm feeling great, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you over here. But first things first, I would move on to Miss Rubina over here. So Miss Rubina, first things first, and that is, what is the significance of International Men's Health Week, number one, and why do you think it is important for everybody to kind of understand, and talk about men's health, and how do you think it contributes to the economy of the country, because majority of the men are working in the country?
That's right, Shahzad. Thank you very much. It's a very good question. First of all, first part of your question, International Men's Health Week is observed to promote and support well-being and health of men and boys in our societies. And it was first initiated in 1994 at the Congress. And the purpose was to raise awareness among men and boys about preventable diseases, their early detection, and then to take care of their health. Because men, when it comes to the men's health,
nobody else thinks about that, so it was a group of men who came together who thought, okay, since nobody cares about us, why don't we kind of talk about it, and
right.
It was people from different backgrounds who came together and realized that, hey, you know what, we really need to do this.
Yeah, that's right. There were people from 6 representatives from 6 different organizations, men's organizations. They came together from different parts of the world, and they met at the second Congress, and then they decided that this should be observed regularly. Because
I was hoping that it could have been women too, right? Coming together and be like, यार मर्दों का ख्याल रखते हैं, जरा मर्द बेचारे जो है पूरा दिन काम करते हैं, थोड़ा उनका ख्याल रखा जाए.
On a serious note, it is very important for every household to take care of men, because men are supposed to be, they are the bread earners, they are the bread earners, and they are supposed to they're supposed to be, working all life, accumulating money to make a nice house for the family, buy a car for them, and education of their children, and then their marriages, and finally the retirement.
I've literally seen parents, where they haven't bought, new dresses for themselves because they couldn't afford, but they would rather do it for their family. And credit goes to not just the fathers, obviously the mothers, because even they are the flag bearers, and they are at the forefront of running a household, which is not an easy job. It's a 365 days job. So I'm not taking anything away from women, but this week is for us. All right. So let me kind of contribute to that. So very quickly, Dr. Saab, coming on to you now. So Dr. Saab, why do you think it's important? Number one, I would want you to kind of give us your take on this day and this week. And why do you think that men really do not care or look after their own health, and they're more focused about their families, they're more at the giving end?
Well, honestly, it depends on who you talk to and what men you talk to. Now, there's certain men who actually are more focused on their own activities and their own lifestyle. So they're out there, they're actually taking time out each day to exercise, lead a healthy lifestyle. While there are others, like the day laborers here in Pakistan particularly, who are out there in the scorching heat right now, who are working day in, day out, and they're exerting themselves, getting exercise, but it's not the type of exercise that we particularly look at from a men's health sort of point of view. And then they're addressing one thing. They're not addressing the mental aspect of men's health. They're not addressing the diet in regards to men's health. So it's not just activity in itself. It's a whole perspective look at health in general, from head to toe.
And to kind of get started with that, so let's get started from the life expectancy. I mean, it is very unfortunate in our part of the world that the life expectancy, as per the research, they say that, for men and women is now at 64, 65 years. Earlier, the life expectancy for women was higher. We certainly need to kind of talk about that too as well. But, imagine that, for the general public, for the masses who are out there who are not very well aware, Allah waste jo hum zindagi guzarte hain, alhamdulillah, we could only spend 64 years and that's it. How do you think that people really need to kind of make sure that there's concerted effort in making sure that there's life expectancy beyond 80 years? We have seen countries where there's life expectancy of somewhat around 90 to 95 years as well. And they coexist and they're living together and they're making sure that everybody's going to be healthier mentally, physically, spiritually.
Correct. So, I mean, if you look at Asia in general, you look at Japan, they have a longer life expectancy than us. But if you look particularly in Pakistan as well, you look in the northern areas like Hunza.
Yep.
Hunza, everyone tends to live a lot longer than the people in, let's say, central Punjab and KP or in Sindh. And why is that? If you take a look into that, it's because of their lifestyle. In Hunza and in particular up there in the northern areas, their diet is all organic. So they don't have the westernized diet that we have here in Islamabad, Pindi, Lahore, and all the major cities.
Tikke, the chappal kebab,
so they're
mutton
eating from the land.
and chomping.
they're
I feel like eating
cultivating. They're actually out there. They're walking up and down the hills. They're exerting themselves, getting the daily exercise, and they're in a cliche way. They're one with nature, supposedly.
Exactly, and they have a very simpler life. Let's
It's
put it this way.
it's much simpler. There's no. I mean, I'm not up there, so I can't vouch for their mental health or mental stress. But I envision it's a lot less because they're not worried about everything else that we're worried about. Here, essentially, it's, oh, what is this person doing? What are they driving? From that perspective, you're looking, where can I climb this ladder up for what we deem as success, which success doesn't just boil down to your finances and so forth. It's going to boil down to, number one, obviously, your future is your children. How are you going to get them to that future? And then also, it's actually your health. Because not only your physical health, but your mental health as well.
Exactly. And thank you so much for pointing that out, because, what I researched about and what I studied about was that the leading cause of death, unfortunately, amongst men and women is heart disease, and since you happen to be the HOD for cardiology yourself, is it literally heart disease, or do you think it is stress and anxiety and depression contributing towards, you having a cardiovascular disease?
Well, honestly, it's literally heart attacks is one of the common causes, or ischemic heart disease. By ischemia, I mean lack of blood flow. So you have ischemic heart disease, and in that, those are heart attacks. But then when you look at ischemia in general, that also includes strokes. Okay. So strokes also accounts for around about 8 to 9%. So when you look at it as a whole, ischemic or cardiovascular complications cause about 30% of deaths in Pakistan each year. So it's the leading cause of death in all of Pakistan.
Exactly, and it's obviously stress and anxiety which kind of leads you towards cardiovascular disease.
Correct. Stress and anxiety is one key factor in there, along with sedentary lifestyle, inactivity, then obviously your other comorbid conditions which you have, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things of that nature.
And it's all because of diet, and we would certainly in the later half of the show we'll talk about solutions and how we really need to kind of plan our diet. But I would want to move on to Ms. Rubina over here, and that is that, do you agree that men a lot of times are under stress because of the household issues they have, or do you think it is more work related? And how do you think that women can actually contribute in making sure that men are eased, relaxed? Because I do know for a fact that when I do not have an argument with my wife, I have a great day. I'm stellar, I'm stunner, wherever I go, I'm a showstopper and whatnot, my energy is top notch. But God forbid, if my wife is arguing with me, that's something which I'm going to overthink about. That's something which, will put me under stress. That's something which will give me anxiety. And I keep on telling her. And I keep on telling her that, hey, you know what, if you're going to be good to me before I leave for work, I'm going to have a great day. And I think that she at times takes advantage of that, that okay, because he has actually shared this with me now today, because if he has messed up with me, I'm going to mess up his day as well. Do you think that happens?
Yeah, I totally agree to that.
Thank you so much.
It's not only about men, but it is about women as well. For example, I am a working woman, and my other siblings are also, everyone is working. And when you have bad morning at home, even if it is a little argument about where did you put the car key, and then you start an argument about it, and it actually messes up your day. You have that thing at the back of your mind all day, and you are not in a good mood. You go to your office, you just enter your own cabin, and without maybe saying hello or good morning, even if you say, that will not be with that energy, with that positivity, and with that pleasant mood, right? So when it comes to men's health, it is noticed that their health goes to the back burner in Pakistan, where 50.4% of the population is male, right? And their own health is compromised because they sacrifice. As Dr. Saab said that in Western societies it is different, but in Pakistan men are the bread earners mainly, and when it comes to their health, it goes at the back burner, and studies reveal that women visit doctors twice as men do.
Really?
Yeah. And studies also revealed that 40% of men said that when it comes to seeing a doctor when they are unwell, they take few days to see the healthcare.
But you know what, I believe that this trend is changing, or probably it totally depends on the household or the kind of upbringing you've had, because I've seen my father, alhamdulillah, God forbid, if he feels that there's something's not right, the first thing he's going to do is go to a doctor himself, not self-medicate, but rather go to a doctor himself. And that's something which has instilled in me a habit that, God forbid, if I feel that I'm not feeling fine, even if it's like 1% of it, I would certainly go to the doctor at that very moment, leave everything behind, because I think what we really need to do is that we really need to kind of share with people that life is something which should always be more important for you rather than work, rather than anything else. Because if you are going to be here, only then you are going to look after other people, which is why with that I'm going to move on to Dr. Saab once again. So Dr. Saab, we've spoken about stress, anxiety, and there can be multiple causes of it. But now let's come down to what we men do intentionally to our health. Number one is smoking. Unfortunately, there's a larger percentage of drug prevalence within the society these days, and people, to get away from stress and anxiety, have actually picked up on means which are not healthier at all. There's no concept of detoxifying as well. There's no concept of, probably if you are habitual of it, kind of maintain a balance. Then most of the time we are in denial. We have this very staunch mindset that, okay, whatever I'm doing is right, and whatever you have to do and whatnot. Because a lot of times your parents, your kids, your wife will always tell you that, hey, you know what, this is not the right way to do it. And then that's the time jab andar ka mar jagna shuru ho jata hai ki oh nahi oye main sahi keh raha hu, and which I obviously disagree, and I'm not going to advocate about that, please.
So you are correct. So smoking is one of the major factors, and it not only leads to, people always associate smoking with lung cancer, heart disease, but it actually leads to what's called peripheral arterial disease. So you see a lot of patients who are out there who have amputations of the foot, the leg, and that's because of peripheral arterial disease. That's because of blockages that occur in the arteries that lead to any extremity. And that is actually, number one cause is smoking, secondary cause is diabetes.
Yes.
So those are things that we fail to look at. And now people are saying, okay, I'm not smoking. I have a lot of people who are coming in and saying, I'm vaping. Vaping is just as bad.
Yeah.
So vaping,
I think it's more bad.
Vaping is actually worse. It's actually worse, and it's actually banned in certain areas. So then they talk about, now obviously all the other illicit drugs are more readily available here in Pakistan. You also throw in alcohol being available, which it is. And those all factors, if you're not taking into account other instances like how well you're controlling your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your sugar, if you're partaking in those illicit activities, that can actually lead to a worsening of your health. So, we're always viewed as being the strong ones in the household, everything else, but I would like the viewers to note one point.
Sure.
Everyone looks at all these superheroes, there's Spider-Man. Well, there was Black Panther as well. Yeah. There was Chadwick Boseman. How did he pass?
True.
He was in the prime of his career. He was a presumed healthy individual. He died at age 43 because of colon cancer. He probably diminished his symptoms, didn't look at things that way. And I mean, that's early. Screening for colon cancer starts at age 45. He died at age 43. But he likely had symptoms beforehand, weight loss, probably pain in the stomach, the gut. But that's a superhero, so to speak, who actually passed. So it can happen to anyone. That's early passing. So we need to look at it from the men's standpoint. Don't take your health lightly.
True.
I mean, you should, if you feel there's something wrong, get it assessed, get evaluated as soon as possible, and make sure that you're at least seeing a doctor, if not once a year, preferably every 6 months, and that should be your GP.
Exactly, and in addition to that, what I would want people to understand is that all of these diseases and illnesses we are talking about are preventable. Only if you're more aware of it, only if you're on top of it, which is why, I think this example is very relevant. And at this point, I would want to add on over here that out of 10, one woman is actually kind of more likely to get breast cancer as well. And just because they do not go for the screening, there's a lot of taboo around it, so I think unfortunately just because of that, a lot of women has passed away just because of breast cancer, and it was very important. But now what I would like to kind of talk about over here is that, that we have this predisposition of, this part of the world where we live, a lot of cholesterol, a lot of hypertension, a lot of diabetes, then, renal functions, and then thyroid, and all of these problems are things which we can adjust with, we can kind of, play around with and then adjust our health according to that. But unfortunately, now imagine that, one of my uncle who actually has diabetes says that, once I inject insulin, I can eat anything. And, so later at night, he's looking in the fridge and the freezer for ice creams and whatnot. How do you think that we tell them, hey, you know what, you're playing with your life, you're not supposed to do that. It's just that 2 seconds of palate temptation, and then later on, God forbid, it's a problem for the rest of the household.
That's 100%. We see that all the time in the clinic.
And why are we predisposed to all of these conditions?
So one of the reasons why we're predisposed is genetics. Our genetics, particularly it is our South Asian genetics.
Yeah.
So we have a higher preponderance of high cholesterol. So a lot of people who even eat healthy, their LDL, which is their bad cholesterol, is sky high, and that's from genetics. So one thing that we can tell, you're allowed to eat what you want to eat as long as it's in moderation. Now, if you're a diabetic, that doesn't mean going and grabbing a whole tub of Hiko ice cream or Waltz ice cream and eating the whole tub. Have a little spoonful, maybe once every 3 days, once every 4 days, something of that nature, rather than going through. Same thing with blood pressure issues. People who have hypertension, doesn't mean that they can't have a little bit of salt. You can have a little bit of salt, but you need to still be compliant with your medications. And then on top of that, it's the lifestyle changes you need to make.
And go for a daily walk, make sure, because,
Correct.
Right in the beginning, alhamdulillah, may everybody's parents be healthier and, they stay on top of our heads, ladies and gentlemen, for the rest of our lives, alhamdulillah, and for the rest of their lives as well. And this is something which I've seen growing up, my father and my mother going for a walk together every single day. No matter, they end up arguing every single day, because my mom comes back early and then my father comes back later, because at some part of their, wherever they went for their walk, they've had an argument, so.
That's typical. That's typical among couples.
There's this really funny incident that, so my father was actually teaching my mother how to drive, and they ended up being in an argument. And my father walked back home, and then my mother drove back home.
Wow.
So imagine the things
that
like
was
these
a
can
blessing
happen.
in disguise.
Which is why, so now the conversation is actually going to move on towards the broken heart syndrome as well. I want to head out towards a short break, but once we'll come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk about that. God forbid, if you have a broken heart syndrome, can that actually be a problem for your health? We'll talk about it, and then in the later part, we'll certainly talk about the solutions. We're going for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Be full of love. Make sure that you're always at the giving end, which we are. Alhamdulillah, let's do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying tuned to PTV World. You watching World this morning. The name happens to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and I'm repeating all sorts of information because I do know for a fact that there might be newer viewer who has actually just tuned into PTV World, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually talking about International Men's Health Week, which was celebrated and observed from 12th of June till 18th. But we certainly wanted to put more focus on this because it's just around the corner when Father's Day take place. Happy Father's Day to all the amazing fathers who are out there who always made sure that they're going to provide for their family, whether they can afford it for themselves or not. But just before going towards the break, we spoke about the broken heart syndrome. It's very common these days, and I think social media plays and contributes to it quite a lot. And you know, so सच्ची मोहब्बत अक्सर नहीं मिलती है लोगों को. And I have Dr. Saab over here, who happens to be the head of Department of Cardiology, you know, from Maroof International Hospital. And I would want him to answer that. Do you think that it's really a syndrome and it can have an impact on your health?
So it can have, it is really a syndrome, and it can have a huge impact on your health. So broken heart syndrome typically occurs more so in females than in males.
Okay.
But it still can occur in males, and it happens at a time of severe stress. So typically when a person has a heart attack, it's due to a blockage in an artery. What happens in broken heart syndrome, it happens, let me give you an example, like an elderly female is robbed.
Okay.
And she comes, she's very, very anxious because of the robbery. Her arteries will spasm down, and when they spasm down, it mimics a heart attack.
True.
And that mimicking of a heart attack does show up on an ECG. It shows up on blood markers, and then their ejection fraction, or the pump of their heart, actually goes down. So they have symptoms of heart failure as well. So this is actually diagnosed per actually an angiogram, so a heart cath, or an echocardiogram. But the treatment is you put them on medicines and they recover. But as they say, it can typically occurs in females, but it can occur in males who are under a significant amount of stress.
Exactly. Thank you so much for saying that. And you know, so ladies and gentlemen, I think it is for the men to be more careful that they do not give a broken heart syndrome to any other lady who's out there. So rather be a reasonable gentleman. But very quickly, before we move on towards the solution, you know, because to be very honest, you know, we always give credit where it's due, and Maroof International Hospital, may it be any other day, they make sure that they're going to raise more awareness. You know, it's more of a community service, and you've been at the forefront of it. So, you know, what have you done, you know, during this week or month where you've made sure that there's going to be more awareness that too about men's and boys' health?
Like many other international health days, health weeks and months, we have done a lot of work throughout this week, particularly with the help of Dr. Omar Idris Mufti, his team, cardiologists, physicians, surgeons and other specialties as well, like physiotherapists and internal medicines and everything. Mental health specialists as well, psychologists and psychotherapists. We go to different educational institutions. First of all, we circulate a letter or an information to all the stakeholders, whoever wishes us to come and, you know, hold such sessions. So educational institutions are very important because healthy boys turn into healthy men.
Yeah.
So it is important to teach them, to raise awareness among them, and to raise awareness among women as well, among young girls as well, young ladies as well.
Obviously, God forbid, if nobody's a healthy boy, you know, they will convert into a healthier man if there's more awareness. You know, so that's I think
and then we go to Kachi Abadis and marginalized communities where there is no awareness of health at all. Health,
with so many videos coming out where, you know, people are actually parking their Corollas in slums, you know, and making 4,000, 5,000 rupees a day. I think they should certainly be focusing on that.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about it off the record as well. But very quickly, because we're short on time, we truly kind of appreciate the you know, community service you've delved into, and I think it's going to have a lot of positive outcomes and give me a lot of positive
this kind of sessions we do in face or in person, we do in Rawalpindi, Islamabad and the surrounding areas, but when it comes to countrywide, we do webinars, we do online conferences, and our team of foreign trained consultants, they give talk on whatever the days, and throughout this month we've been very busy.
And anybody can listen to that and be a part of webinars?
Yes,
wow. So can you share the website or anything, any link where they can find more information?
We certainly will, and we also raise awareness through paper, electronic and social media. Like we are on your channel, we have been on other places as well, and then, you know, social media messages, hashtags and everything. So this is how we raise the awareness, and I want to give you a big round of applause for kind of talking more about men's health this time around when it was International Men's Health Week. But very quickly, Dr. Saab, you know, coming back to you, and now we have to wrap it up, so we really need to give people smart solutions. So number one, what kind of testing do you think one needs to undergo, you know, if they're not willing to go to the doctor in the first place, to kind of check whether generally, you know, they are healthy or not?
So typical general things which people probably have at home. If you have a blood pressure cuff, check your blood pressure at home. So average blood pressure should be less than 130 by 80.
Okay.
Best time to check your blood pressure is in the morning, after you've gone to the restroom, but before you've had any breakfast, so no salt intake, no caffeine intake.
Okay.
So that would be one thing. And if you notice it's relatively high, I would advise you going to see not just a cardiologist, but your general physician, your medical practitioner, and they can then assess if it needs to be referred.
Wonderful.
The other thing that you can potentially do is most people have a family member who is a diabetic around the house. Check, you can take their glucometer, check your blood glucose level, random levels, Lele, and see if it's high. If it's high, then you should seek medical attention.
How high? What's the normal
So
range?
random blood sugar, if it's generally speaking greater than like 200 or so, you should
Before
get it checked.
food?
So, this is random, so this is after meals, so around about up to 2 hours after a meal. So if it's high, get it checked. Those are two simple things that you can do that are probably around the house, or you have a relative who has those machines with them, the BP cuff and the glucometer. The other thing is routine walking. So as you said, it's a brisk walk that people can have. If you find it's more mental stress to go with your spouse, go on your own. But one thing to realize, which was good in that advisory that the NDMA had announced, is that the heat now is obviously it's
unbearable.
It is unbearable. So one thing to do is walk when obviously the sun is not out. After Isha, after Fajr, go and do it that way. And we advise 30 minutes a day of a brisk walk. So by brisk walk, I mean enough to break a sweat. You're going to break a sweat anyways in this heat out there, but keep yourself hydrated. That's one thing I would advise. So if you're going to go out there and go for walk or do your routine exercise, please keep yourself hydrated. So that means water, none of these fizzy drinks. You can take ORS, Gatorade, whatever you have.
Exactly, that's wonderful. And in addition to that, I still remember, I think that our educational institutes really need to do this, and that is that, so my nephew who used to study in England, he came down over here for his BDS. So he told us that, that while we were growing up and I was in my 5th grade, our teachers every day would come and share with us that, while you're taking shower, check your entire body. If there's any breakout or something, please make sure that you report it to your parents. And that's something which we really need to kind of educate our boys with or girls with as well. And for all of these recommendations Dr. Saab has to put in front of you, it's not just for men. I believe that it's for everybody. And God forbid, if you think that there's something you think is not right, always make sure that you do not think twice and go to a doctor, go to a general physician first, and then the general physician should actually be able to guide you to who to go to after all the testing has been done. Do not self-medicate yourself. There are a lot of people who self-medicate and they think that they're going to be just fine. Please don't do that, because there can be adverse effects of self-medication. Never do that. And thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being with us. Thank you so much, Ms. Rubina, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to be in conversation with you, and that too on this very important day. Is there anything you want to say more?
The one last thing I'd want to leave with is, with the children these days, I would want them to realize that don't just sit there, watch TV, play video games, be on your iPad. Get out there, obviously not in this heat again, but get out there and play outside. Cricket, ride your bike, play football, do whatever physical activity it is. Because if you inculcate that in your lifestyle to begin with, it will carry on throughout your life.
Exactly, and I still remember that there's this funny incident, so since I've always been a very keen horse rider, so I wanted my daughters to learn horse riding, so I took them for horse riding, and they were so scared of the horses, so now they make me a horse at home and they ride me. But this will still be a physical activity for them, jumping around, doing something with them, and always, kind of think about exploring new things with your kids and with your wife, and it will definitely revitalize your very relationship with the kids and with your wife and with your loved ones. Sit down with your parents and, get a talk of wisdom from them, because my father always will tell me, Puttar kuch bada karo, but has been unable to tell me what is bada for him and for me. But thank you so much once again for everybody for joining us, and for everybody who's out there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my part of responsibility where I have to come and tell you that these are the things which are really important. When a nation is actually going to be healthier, the nation is going to progress. It can contribute economically, financially, and on all sorts of holistically if you are to kind of look at it. So please make sure that you take this responsibility, educate more people, and just thank you so much for being with us. And I'm in love with my work. And for everybody who's out there, please, if you do not love your work, please, first of all, what you need to do is look for another job, because what happens is that, one thing in hand is better than two in bushes. Allah Hafiz, look after yourselves. Good morning.